Coming up with Scott Grayson from Fox 29. Grayson's Grays are posted after every Eagles game over at 97.3 ESPN.com. And he joins me right now for another edition of Grayson's Grades. And, of course, the Eagles, I don't know, what was the grade of the first half of the game, Scott?
Well, the first half wasn't bad because they forced that pick six. They had, the touchdown on the opening drive, which they weren't making that play earlier in the season. When Jalen Hurts has broken the pocket, he's always looking, it seems, to run. And it's like, what made Russell Wilson so good with the Seahawks? He kept his eyes downfield. And that's what I wished that Jalen Hurts would do more of. And he did on that first touchdown to A.J. Brown. He gestured to him to go down the sidelines. He left his defender behind him, and he made a perfect throw to him. The first half to me wasn't a perfect game by far, right? There's still things to clean up, but it was steps in the right direction that I saw on all sides of the ball. Nobody dropped the kickoff. I mean, at least there's that.
They had two new kick returners this week.
Yeah, they understand. There's, if they want to keep that job, they got to catch the ball. But, so it was a solid effort. They had energy. They had all the things they didn't have up in New York against the Giants, and to me, it was an encouraging step in the right direction.
Well, taking a look, because I will say, you mentioned the touchdown to A.J. Brown also had three and outs in the first half. I mean, and the end of the half, I don't know what the heck they were doing at the end of that half. So that was a whole mess. But the first half, if you just watched that game and said this was the game, you would say, oh, my God, this offense is a mess. Nothing's fixed. It's still going down the wrong road. And then the second half kind of happened.
Yeah, and here's the funny thing. Some of the second half success, I think, happened by accident, right? And I doubt any of them will admit it. But when Cam Jurgens goes out and Brett Toth comes into the center position, he can't do the shotgun snaps. They're abysmal. They're awful. So they had to go under center more. Well, why did they have success in the second half? The players were talking about it after the game. They were doing more under center. Play action becomes a little bit more it works better. There's a lot of things that function out of that this team just doesn't do with Jalen Hurts. It's always out of the gun. So I think they stumbled on some success by accident. Now, if anybody over there is paying attention, they had success earlier in the season when they went to a no-huddle offense. I don't know why they aren't doing that now and then more frequently. They've now had a little bit of success going under center. Will we see that continue at least maybe a little bit more? The biggest problems now still exist in the running game. This offensive line, which this is not making an excuse, but they have not started a game with the same five guys and ended it with the same five guys. Whoever they start with, somebody's getting hurt and banged up, and now that communication on the line, that chemistry on the line, the idea of knowing exactly what the guy next to me is going to do when the defense does this, not there. And I'm not, again, making excuses for them, but they need just a little bit of consistency on that line to perhaps try to find some answers to get Saquon Barkley going, because that's the one piece of the puzzle you're still missing.
Right, let's start with the grades. The guys, Hurts, Devontae, A.J. Brown, those guys got the A's in the game. You gave Nick Sirianni an A. What did you like about his role in this game?
Like I said, they came out with energy, right? They just suffered two bad losses. I was in that locker room after both of them, and particularly after the New York Giants loss. Those guys were angry. Sirianni had a job to do bringing these guys back together to get them to get back on track. And that's not an easy thing, I think, for a head coach to do during the week. We don't see it. It's behind the scenes, but it starts with having energy at practice, having the guys all going in the right direction and feeling like, hey, we know we had some things messed up here. We all, including you guys, have to fix them. And I thought he did a good job of, during the week, having this team ready to play. Better, obviously, than they did going into the Giants game, and maybe to a little bit of an extent, the Broncos game. So, I talked about it with Billy Schweim on the weekend. This was a big game to me. This was a huge game because there's a big difference between 4-3 and 5-2. And if they didn't come out and do what they needed to do here, I think they were in real danger of potentially starting to lose some guys in the locker room going back down that 2023 road.
Oh, I agree. We were talking about this with Sal Pal on Friday, Scott, and I said, this is kind of a make-or-break game. I didn't think it was a must-win game, but I thought you had to look good. Like, you had to be aesthetically pleased. You had to have the offense feel like we've at least taken a step in the right direction. And if we didn't win the game, it's 38-35, but at least we did our part, because it felt like that the offense was starting to feel like we're not holding up our end of the bargain. I want to get your thoughts, though, on what Lane Johnson did or did not say after the game. He said, I don't want to talk because I don't want to cause a divide. I mean, does that feel like there's still something not right, or is he just kind of saying that in jest?
Lane's an interesting guy. Normally he's a guy, what he did last week, he told you exactly how he felt. It's something I respect a lot about him and other players like that. Jordan Mailata is a lot like that. Brandon Graham was like that. Jason Kelsey was like that. They'll tell you exactly what they're thinking, and they don't care what people, may think about what they say. If they're speaking the truth, they stand by it. I thought Lane spoke the truth. I thought he said things that needed to be said, frankly, last week.
And I don't think anybody had a problem with what he said. I think he was just saying, I don't want to do that again because, I don't want it to get blown out of proportion.
The problem I have with that is you're one of the captains, and, I don't like it when A.J. Brown doesn't speak. You're one of the captains. You're a long-standing veteran here. You've won multiple Super Bowl rings here. Few players can say that. People want to hear what you have to say. And I think after a performance like that would be a time to stand up and speak and have some things to say, because I think people do listen when he speaks, not just fans, but players as well. And so it's a little troubling and alarming when Lane does that. But listen, I understand it. It's not something that I think he particularly enjoys, speaking to the media a whole lot. The big group of us, if you can get him in a one-on-one situation, I think you'd have a much better conversation with him. And honestly, I think he'd be more comfortable. But I was a little surprised that he chose not to speak after that game.
Scott Grayson's grades are up at 97.3 ESPN.com. What about Kevin Patullo? You gave him a C, and now everybody else in the offense got an A. Why the coordinator in the middle of the pack?
Like I said, maybe I'm a little biased. I'm not really buying in yet on Kevin Patullo. I've been disgruntled by the fact we've talked about it before. There seems to be very few halftime adjustments, and I think I am operating and gave the grade based on the fact, as you talked about in the first half, the way things were, that the second half, they got lucky and stumbled on something that worked by accident that looks like an adjustment. I'm not sold that whole under center thing was like Kevin Patullo going, hey, I have an idea. Let's do this. And off they went. See was, the way that the passing game operated. He obviously had to call those plays. Sure. Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith all had to execute. The line had to block well enough to allow those pass plays to happen. So there's some good things there, but I need Kevin Patullo to earn a little bit of good graces over time. I need to see something a little bit more sustained. I need that running game to get fixed. One way or another, you've got to get Saquon Barkley going somehow. What they did yesterday, you can't expect that to happen week in and week out. And I think that's what I'll be looking at Kevin Patullo for this next week against the Giants, who obviously had that offense figured out.
Well, one of the takes from a lot of the listeners today is if a competent quarterback is playing, you probably lose that game. Do you feel the same way?
Vikings games?
Yeah, yesterday. In other words, Wentz throws 2 interceptions, one of them for a touchdown, 2 back-to-back picks. That led to points. If they're playing against a team that had a little bit more competent now, I don't think Wentz. I thought when he was bad, he was really bad, but he had some moments.
He did, but here's what I liked about, Jalen Carter. I thought the hit he put on Wentz on that pick six, it's probably underappreciated. He legitimately popped.
Oh no,
Wentz hard.
I thought that was one of the moments of the game.
Well, that's what I'm saying, and I don't think enough people probably noticed that. You see Jalen Hunt pick it off and go the other way. Why did that happen? Wentz got popped hard by Carter. That was a hard hit. In fact, I thought he might end up coming out of the game. And when he stayed in and threw that second pick, then I thought the Vikings might have been concerned about his ribs or something like that as well. It's a fair question. Would a different quarterback have had different results? Look, I thought there were plays that could have been made. The T.J. Hawkinson touchdown that got called back where he had to dive, that was a bad throw by Wentz. He had plenty of room. He should have made a better throw so Hawkinson doesn't have to dive, and then you don't even worry about that. Now it's a touchdown. The sacks, the Eagles only got 2 sacks, but they happened at bad times for the Vikings, right? Late in the game, they're trying to make something happen, and they got to him. We know from being here, Carson Wentz will hold the ball and try to force plays not be there. And sometimes he looks amazing when he makes them happen. And then other times he just does not look good at all when they go the wrong way. And yeah, would a Josh Allen possibly have had a Patrick Mahomes? Yeah, I mean, we're talking an elite quarterback there. But, Wentz did make some plays. He did make some throws on the run. He did make some things happen with his legs a little bit too. And
Oh, yeah.
it was a Carson Wentz game. I mean, frankly, that's what I expected from Wentz coming into the game.
Scott Grayson's grades. Let's go to the defense over at 97.3 ESPN.com. Obviously, we're talking a lot about defense. What do you think of, the pressure that they got? There's some reporting about Brandon Graham possibly, them making a call to him. So what does that say about the grades of the pass rush yesterday?
You made a face at me last week when I said that they might go looking at Brandon Graham. The pass rush needs help. There's no doubt. And I think the surprise retirement of Zadarius Smith has prompted them to go down this road a little bit even further with Brandon Graham. And look, when I saw Brandon,
have you seen Graham recently?
I have not, but I remember when we were at the Super Bowl, talking to him, being around him a lot leading up to that. I did not get the sense that guy was completely ready to pick up his cleats. So I didn't fully buy in that he was completely retired. I think if he was able to rehab that tricep completely in the offseason and have extra time like he has now, I expected him to be one of those guys who was like, I'm just going to stay in shape just in case. And the way that the Eagles' schedule is lined up, getting him for the whole second half of the year, to me, for certain packages, would be advantageous for the way this pass rush is right now. You throw him in on third downs, maybe some second and longs. You have packages for him. And then by the time you get to the playoffs, you've kind of got him. You see what you've got with him a little bit more. And that might end up giving you something that you obviously don't have right now, let alone the chemistry and leadership he brings to the locker room. And I said this last night on Fox 29, Mike. If you listen to players who were asked about Brandon Graham last night, and Nick Sirianni asked about Brandon Graham after the game, don't listen to what they say. It's what they didn't say that I picked up on. Not one of them, including Nick Sirianni, denied any of those reports that, that's dream, BG's enjoying retirement. Nobody said that. I think this is definitely happening. I think the plan is to get him back in here this week, get some practices under his belt next week, practices during the bye, and perhaps after the bye you start seeing him, if he's ready, contributing to this team. I think it's going to happen. But the pass rush itself needs a lot of help, and they're just not getting home enough. And Jalen Carter being there yesterday helped. I don't think he's still quite 100%, but having him out there obviously was a lot better than not.
Yeah, I agree on the Graham. I mean, this thing, once it gets to the level where Adam Schefter and Ian Rappaport are starting to put it out there, it's pretty much seemingly a done deal, I would imagine.
And again, nobody denied it yesterday. Nobody came out yesterday with the Eagles, associated with the Eagles, or even associated with Brandon Graham, and said, this is not happening. This is just, nobody denied it.
No, and that's what I'm saying. Once it gets to the level where the national reporters, they're not putting that out there just because they got willy-nilly information. This seemingly is the route. Now, the question would be, is Brandon Graham enough, a 37-year-old Brandon Graham, enough to help this pass rush out? Do they just need a part-time – I don't even know what Graham would be at this stage. Like, he was pretty good last year. He was better than everybody anticipated. Then he ends up getting hurt. I thought where he was really good last year was against the run. Like, setting the edge against the run, I thought, was an area. They're not having huge problems against the run. They need pass rush.
They do. And no, he's not the answer. He's part of the answer, in my mind. You are going to get Nolan Smith back. That will help. I've got to believe, and we've heard reports of this too, that Howie Roseman is working the phones. That he is, trying to find another edge, trying to find another corner, which I can't stomach Keely Ringo out there much longer. This is just not easy to watch. And so they've got issues on defense they need to fix. And do I think Brandon Graham would help? Yes, I think he would help. Will he solve their problems? No, not by himself. They need some other pieces to come in, and I think that's where you look at the trade deadline. Yeah. And again, you start getting Nolan Smith back. That'll help. Nakobe Dean – giving more Jahad Campbell some reps perhaps on the outside a little bit more. That might help a little bit too, but they definitely need to make some work.
Yeah, I was going to say, Nate Dean got 31 snaps yesterday. I thought he played, pretty well. Like he was active. He made some plays. I think he had 6 tackles. And I guess if he can give you more, Do they feel more like, hey, if we get a Brandon Graham and a Jahad Campbell, that adds a little extra that we haven't had? And then Nolan Smith is also due back.
Right. I think that's all part of the equation. And I think what I loved about Nakobe the best yesterday was I was reminded of how quickly he dissects a play and goes and makes it. The tackle for loss he had might have been one of his first tackles in the game. He shot a gap and took a running back down in the backfield, and it was vintage Nakobe Dean last year. And I thought that was really positive and reassuring to see in terms of where he's at and how healthy he is now post, his injury. And I think he is going to allow this team to become more versatile. I think this defense is going to start finding its way slowly but surely with the additions that are coming, the guys getting healthier post-bye week where they can also get a little bit healthier and not be so banged up themselves, and just a little bit of help in that secondary. I think they're close. I think they're close as a defense. They just need more of a pass rush to be on those quarterbacks so they can't sit back there, and find the time that somebody breaks away from an Adoree Jackson or a Keely Ringo.
All right, Scott Grayson's grades are up at 97.3ESPN.com. After every Eagles game, you can get Grayson's grades, and they'll grade the New York Giants are back in town. Just 10 days ago, they played the Giants, so they'll be back in Philadelphia this weekend. Coming off a heartbreaking loss are the Giants, and you can listen to that game right here on 97.3 ESPN. But they get one yesterday. It's a big day for Jalen Hurts and the two receivers, but they got to get this run game going, man. They got to get the run game going.
They do, and I'll tell you what, man, this is an interesting one. It's amazing how much things change in 2 weeks, right? The Eagles come off that Giants loss, look like the wheels are coming off the wagon, right? And the Giants are gaining momentum, and then they collapsed yesterday. Dable's like breaking chairs in the locker room, and now they're going to come back here, and the Eagles, it's a funny game, man. It's just a funny game, and I can't wait to see how the Eagles come out and look for some revenge next week. I think it should be fun to watch.
Well, and I can't, who would ever imagine a scenario this particular season where the Giants could come into Philadelphia and win a game? Okay, you got one in on a short week, all right, and give them credit. They kicked your butt in that game. But for them now to come here to win in Philadelphia, that would be an eye-opening situation if Philadelphia lost a game on their home field against this team after you already lost to them once. You get swept by the Giants this year, that would
That's a problem.
Yeah, that would be a problem. All right, read all the grades over at 97.3ESPN.com and check out Scott Grayson, as always, on Fox 29 and right here on the Sports Pass Live on 97.3 ESPN. Thanks, Scott.
All right, thanks, Mike.